Is Annika Smethurst, who's been on this trip as well, of course, political editor for the Sunday News Corp papers. Thanks for your time.
Good to join you, Tom.
So I thought it was interesting, Scott Morrison yesterday in the first news conference we had over here, he seemed pretty sympathetic over Donald Trump and the trade war with China. I mean, I guess we don't expect him to go, this man's a maniac, what's he doing? But he was very tempered about any criticism of the approach.
Look, that could be in one case because we have the US president here who he just met and we actually don't have the Chinese leader. So, look, I think it just highlights how difficult this issue is for Australia, navigating between our traditional ally in the US and, you know, our #1 trading partner. Having said that, he did say he wants peace, he wants this to be resolved, and I think that is the message we're getting from all leaders here at the moment. It's just that I think Scott Morrison was more diplomatic about it. If you look at the way Boris Johnson handled it, you know, he effectively said that Donald Trump could be held responsible should there be a global economic downturn. So we haven't seen those strong sort of words from Scott Morrison. But, you know, when he did address this, he was straight out of a meeting with Donald Trump, and he did say that they did discuss that issue there. The meeting went for longer than expected, and one would think that perhaps trade took up a lot of that time.
I know we get a bit obsessed with the rapport, but a lot matters with the rapport, particularly with Donald Trump. Do we assume that they get along reasonably well? They were pretty sort of convivial when they walked out of it, a lot of smiles, a little back slap, if we want to really delve into the analysis.
I would say definitely they seem to get along well, better than the other leaders here, perhaps. Trump seems to have a good relationship with Emmanuel Macron, but in terms of the other, you know, leaders over here, I wouldn't say he's necessarily close with all of them. So someone like Angela Merkel, for instance. So, look, I think there is a strong relationship between Scott Morrison and Donald Trump. I think that helps, and I was on a trip with Malcolm Turnbull to Washington, and we spoke with a lot of officials over there at the time about the importance of really getting that relationship on track and how Trump is really focused on the personal, and Greg Norman was infamously brought in to sort of, you know, smooth over that relationship. So I think he really is about bilaterals. He doesn't like circumstances like this. He likes one-on-one relationships, and they are close. Yeah,
he likes if you're a good guy or a good gal, and that's
and
most
playing
of the
golf
battle.
helps.
It does. Scott Morrison doesn't play golf, does he? I don't think.
No.
He's keeping his ambitions here pretty limited, Scott Morrison. You know, let's be honest, we're an observer nation, we're not about to change the course of the G7, and really wanted to stick even when he was talking about terror online and reining in these digital companies. When someone was asking him about, what about the tax aspect, he sort of went, well, we'll deal with that later. That seems to be the approach, right? Pretty small steps.
Yeah, they seem to be broad, you know, achievements and things that really aren't that difficult to get consensus on. Getting plastics out of the ocean.
No one's going to disagree.
No one's going to disagree with that. Whether they can do it or not is another thing. But also removing, you know, terror content from online, that's hardly anything anybody's going to advocate for. Having said that, the deal he did get with the OECD to actually pursue one of those the domestic policies, get a bit of funding to make it a bit more than just an Australia-wide issue, I think that's really important.
Just finally, there's a lot of different things you can cover here. You went off the beaten track yesterday on this, what is it, a spouse trip? Or...
Ladies' Day.
Well, it wouldn't have been if Angela Merkel's husband was
he doesn't come, but it was a day trip for the partners, Angela Merkel's husband being the only man amongst them. Jenny Morrison did go. They did extend it beyond the G7. I think there were 7 of them in total. Off the beaten track, you do make it sound like we were off, you know, hiking.
We saw some bell peppers, some sangria.
We went to a pepper town that's well known for its dried peppers. We, sampled some sangria, went to a chili field, went to a church, and a lovely stately home. So they put on a good show. They're out again this morning.
I'm not having a crack at the ladies. It just seems a bit, you know, the blokes are all here and Angela Merkel talking about politics, and they're off traipsing the countryside.
The irony is not lost on the fact that they are discussing gender equality here, and there were 7 women out taken to a textile store yesterday while their husbands did the work. Anyway.
Annika Smethurst, peerless coverage as ever. Thank you.
Not a problem.